thank you so much for staying, and we're just going to spend a quarter of an hour together, and this should be very special, I think. There's a couple of standouts. One is a veteran actor, and the other standout is two very young actors that have just had their first experience in acting. Well, let's start with David Jowsey, if I can, please, Catriona. It was about 42 years ago, ladies and gentlemen, that he first appeared on our screens in a movie called Walkabout. He was identified as a 17-year-old dancer, and a year later was making a movie. So 42 years later, he still possesses the magic, I think, don't you agree? And with his white flowing hair and his beard, he just looks so charming and mystical and magical. How important was it for you to get David Jowsey to come on board this project?
Yeah, and it was, look, there was really no one else that could have played that role. I mean, there are lots of up-and-coming actors who are fabulous, but yeah, look, for me it was, yeah, look, it was I wrote the role for him, because I always had that in my mind. There was Storm Boy and then there was Walkabout, and both those films are real sort of touchstones for me. So.
And then the two young boys, you know, what an incredible effort on debut acting, the two of them. Cameron Wallaby and Joseph Pedley respectively played the roles of Pete and Carmaine. To find them was not easy. Give me some insight into how you went about locating them.
Well, I flew into Broome and picked up Judd Clare, and she's a casting director and associate producer and dramaturg, and she even acted in one of the scenes. And we threw the swags on the car and chucked our kids in the back and started driving, and just went to every town and community along the way, and basically grabbed kids on the street and said, "Come on, audition." And anyway, Joey's mum, Sylvia Clark, saw Cameron outside playing under a tree. Actually outside, just happened to be at the community centre, and basically humbugged him to come in, and he did this fabulous audition, and it sort of started from there. So. And
then at the end of your journey, you managed to identify...
Fitzroy Crossing all the way through to Wyndham, and Judd found Joseph Pedley playing football, I believe, and he came in and we did a lot of rehearsals and workshops and tried to skill them up on how to be on a film set, and mixed and matched different kids together until it was pretty clear that, you know, Cameron and Joseph were just meant to be. They had a great relationship, and there's a lot of great kids that we had to say no to, which was that's the tough side of doing this. Is these incredible kids got to go, but the other kids didn't. So sorry.
Playing the role and doing it just so beautifully of Pete, would you please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Cameron Wallaby, who is with us. And also, if I can, Joseph Pedley, who played the role of Carmaine, is here. Please make him welcome. Now, if you don't mind, what I'll do is I might actually hand over a little bit and get Catriona to talk to the boys, and she can share some of the magic with you.
Right. So, no pressure. So tell me, Joseph and Cameron, what's it like to see it on the big screen? What's it feel like? Yeah, over to you.
Very different, I guess. I mean, I guess it's a different experience too. Like when you see a James Bond or someone else on the TV, you know.
Give it a couple of years.
You know, it's just not the same, and you know, like when other people are up on the screen, but when you aren't, you know, it's just a proud feeling, I guess. Good.
How did you see yourself up on the screen?
Good.
He lights up the screen, doesn't he? You know, I think it's 10 last year. This was filmed last year for 7 weeks.
Yeah, we rehearsed for a couple of weeks and we filmed for 6 weeks, and Cameron was 10 when we started filming, and his 12th birthday is tomorrow, so... So if there's any questions from the audience, I mean...
Okay, and the boys will answer your questions. So we've got a roving mic. Does anyone have a question? It's hard for us to see here, but if you can raise your hand up if you want to ask a question.
Yes, you said it was a small budget film. How small was the budget and how long did it take the executive producers to get the money together so you could start?
Well, you know, you put together a pie of money when you make a film. So we had ABC, we had Screen Australia, we had Screen New South Wales, we had ABC, Screen West, Screen New South Wales, Screen Australia, we had Hopscotch, and then we had the pie, but it was $2.5 million, and because it was such a remote, which doesn't sound like a very small budget, I suppose, except it was in such a remote part of the country, beautiful part of the country, that, you know, it took a lot of money to get all the crew up there and keep all the crew and feed all the crew with their per diems, and everyone stayed in tents and in swags, and it was a very lo-fi sort of thing. And so Gumby, Colin McCumsty, came to the rescue, and Luke Tonkin with Mount Gambier, and raised money. And it was sort of, you know, like Paul Bickerton threw in all that steel and man hours to build the cinema screen and the satellite dish. Like, it was called Satellite Boy, and we couldn't afford a satellite. It was really like stressful. And, you know, so, I mean, these things take a lot of time, and we knew that we wanted to be filming when we were filming, and it was a process of Gumby and David and everyone sort of trying to get all the money together by the time we were filming. But I think, in fact, if I recall, David, this is right, like even when we were filming, we were sort of filming and we didn't quite know if we were going to be able to make it work, because we just didn't quite have enough resources. But it was a community. Without the community, we would not have made this film. You know, without Paul Bickerton and Gumby and other people in the community, it was a lot of, you know, generosity of spirit and love. I mean, we really put it all together. So thank you.
You talked about workshops. Did you find that the workshops influenced the script? But did it develop with the actors once you had cast them?
It's interesting. The first time I ever met Cameron, I don't know if you remember this, Cameron, but I asked you to do an improvisation, and I didn't really say that much about the script, a little bit about the character, a little bit about the story, and Cameron just sort of improvised the basic structure of the film just off his own bat, you know. So there was that little sort of moment over there, and I guess it didn't change the story too much. The relationship developed between Joseph and Cameron, and but I was pretty, I don't know, you know, something about your first feature film, I was pretty locked into what I wanted to do. I think it's now or never. So it didn't really change the narrative structure of the film that much, but it was certainly a really useful process in developing the characters and finding the depth to them. So
Yeah, I'm just curious about what inspired this story.
I've written a pretty complicated, plot-driven script prior to this version of the script, and I guess I've done a lot of television, and television is very plot-driven, and it's all drama, and it's always like, you know, a bit like newspapers, you know, those dramatic bad things that sort of chug the story along, and I wanted to do something that was quite different, and I wanted to explore the relationship between a grandfather and a grandson, sort of for my own personal reasons, because I had been adopted by an elderly father who had raised me, and so there were sort of echoes of my life in that relationship with the grandfather and grandson. And I really wanted to explore how important country and culture is, you know, and so it was all those levels. I mean, there's lots of levels in the film for me. There's the old cinema screen, there's the Milky Way, there's lots of things there for me that I take a lot of pleasure in just seeing them play out. But I guess the real thing was country and culture and that relationship between grandfather and grandson.
Hello, can you tell us the process you went through to get permission to film in the Bungle Bungle?
Well, I'd done a video course with Lester Bostock many years ago, and part of that was he wrote this protocols on filming in Aboriginal communities, and that was one of his things he was very strong on, and I wish Lester could see this film now and see how far we've all come. But I followed that protocol, and you can get that handbook. Basically, we sat down with the community over a number of months, and David Jowsey went and sat down. There's a couple of different traditional owners in the Bunga Bungals, and we sat down, we talked about the story, we told them what we wanted to do, and we did them the courtesy and gave them the respect to just take the time to do it and take the time to allow them to process it and, you know, come back to us and talk about it. And it was really as simple as that, but it wasn't like we chucked a lot of money. We didn't have a lot of money, but it was really about giving due respect. It's their backyard, you know. So if I wanted to go and film in your backyard, I'd sit down and do the same thing, and I'd say,
Never let you.
yeah, you know, we want to take your, yeah. So you know, it was just the same thing. We just went into their, you know, sat down with them and talked with them.
And one of the things was you weren't allowed to drive there. You weren't allowed to take cars through the Bunga Bunga, so you did a lot of walking.
It's a World Heritage.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see it's beautiful, and you know, we had to carry stretches of equipment in, and it was getting very hot at that point. And every person every day needed 8 litres of water per person every day. That's how hot it was, and we had to lug everything in. And we had a cultural consultant, Ron was with us, and he'd say, "Oh no, don't film there," and so we'd just go like that. And I'd say, "Is that all right?" And he'd go, "Yep." So we filmed there. You know, like it was just everything was done in consultation with the community, so that it was all very you know, appropriate for the place, because it's a very special place.
The sort of battle between the grandfather and Pete against the mining company, you know, I mean, that's something that resonates at the moment in Western Australia. Was that important to you? And then how did you get the funding from Mount Gibson Iron? You know, when it was, you know, involving a mining company
Very
charter.
carefully.
Yeah. Before they saw the script.
Well, no, Gumby, you know, Gumby he knew the script, and he knew what the script was about. You know, the thing in it, despite the fact that Satellite Boy, the script, I tried to not make it such a traditional narrative, sort of plot-driven drama. You still need a bit of a catalyst, and so, you know, I didn't want it to be a political film. It's not a political film. It's sort of an allegorical tale, really, but it's an obvious thing. It's an obvious sore point with some communities, with a lot of communities. And I suppose the thing about Mount Gibson is we've gone out to Koolan Island, and it seemed like it's working well with the community. It feels like there are ways that it can work that it benefits, you know, the wider world, I suppose. So I was really impressed with Koolan Island and, you know, the way that it was being managed. So yes, we left that up to Gumby, and he knew the story, and he knew the narrative, and he knew the point, and it's not a political film. We needed some sort of, you know, catalyst to send Pete on his way, and, you know, if you're in the Kimberley, I mean, there's so many mines there, it's an obvious choice.
Who do you most identify with in the movie? Are you more like Pete or more like Carmine?
Pete. Yeah, Pete, I guess.
And he's the hero, hey?
Yeah.
And what did you guys learn coming out? What did you did it change what you learned coming? Have you gone through making the movie? What did you get from the film? What did you take from the film, both being in it but also like watching it?
What do you mean, like the message? Yeah, I guess what I learned from it was, I guess, like stick together at the hard time, I guess, and I think get through it.
Do you think you would like to be in more films in the future?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please give a warm round of applause, firstly for our young actors, so special. Gorgeous boys. Come on, Wallaby, please. Joseph Pedley, who played Crown Lane. Congratulations, you two. You've just made us all so proud, and we wish you all the very best. If you choose to continue acting, we're going to go on the ride with you, and we'll all lay credit to the fact that we were here on this night, won't we? We'll say, like, yeah, we know each other, we're cousins, it's all right. So best of luck to you two. Enjoy this little ride that you're going on at the moment, and I hope it takes you to many wonderful places, it opens up some fantastic doors and opportunities. You get to eat all the food that you want to eat. Thank you very much. And for her directorial debut for a feature film, the first time that the Festival of Perth has ever shown a West Australian flick in 60 years of history of an outstanding festival. The wonderful Catriona McKenzie, ladies and gentlemen, please thank her very, very